Morgans might be quick, they might be very capable, but when you drive one, you don't always feel like you need to drive at 10 tenths to have fun. The cars themselves, they don't always encourage you to drive faster and faster and faster. Except this one does. Very much so.
This is the Morgan CXT, a limited run off-road monster based on the Plus 4 and built in collaboration between Morgan and Rally Raid UK, which, if you don't know, builds machines for the Dakar Rally. If the idea seems wildly inappropriate for Morgan, you need to look back at Morgan's origins. Morgan's founder, engineer Henry Frederick Stanley Morgan, built the company's name through success in trials and hill climbs. The very first Morgan was built in 1909, and yet by 1913 Morgans had taken 10 British and world records as well as 24 gold medals in various trials. Once competition returned after the First World War, that success continued, with records and wins all over the world.
So what do you get with a CXT? Well, it's based on a Plus 4. So at the front, you've got a BMW 2-litre twin turbocharged engine. In the middle, you've got a 6-speed manual gearbox. And at the back, you've got rear-wheel drive. And all of that is held together on Morgan's CX aluminium platform that was introduced on the Plus 6 a few years ago. But as one look at it will tell you, there's quite a lot else going on.
The CXT uses modified Plus 6 wishbones, which means a wider track. Ground clearance is up to 230mm. There's more suspension travel thanks to new specially designed coilovers from a company called EXETC, which has featured on no fewer than 9 WRC championship winning cars since 2001, plus modified wheel arches and new bushes on the lower suspension arms. There's a 5-piece underbody protection system to keep all the mechanicals safe and sound. There are side exit exhausts, a shorter final drive ratio to work alongside the beefy off-road tyres, and there's a BMW xDrive electronic differential with 3 settings to get the most out of the car across various terrains. On top of all of that, there's the bodywork.
The nose cone is exactly the same, as are the doors, but everything else is new. So, you've got these little intakes down here that help better channel cooling air up and over the engine. You've got a tow hook. You've also got the bonnet, finishes about an inch higher than it does on the normal Plus 4 for exactly the same reason. Then you've got these quite innocent looking leather cases on either side. This one on the left, filled with rope. One on the other side has a monstrous rally spec air filter in it. Further back, you've got floodlights. You've got a roll cage. You can take off the upper portion of the doors and secure them on the roof. And then at the back, you've just got everything you could possibly need to go on an adventure. You've got these boxes for water, for fuel. You've got a toolbox. You've got pelly cases. You've got a shovel. You've got sandboards. You've got spare wheels and tyres. You just want to drive it. This is the most un-Morgan-like experience I've ever had. You look at it, you see these big tyres, the massive roll cage, and you think, well, okay, this is obviously a very serious bit of kit. But then you look at the gap between the top of the tyre and the wheel arch, and you're going to think, well, how on earth is that going to be able to deal with the lumps and bumps, the potholes that driving off-road requires you to deal with? But it just soaks it up. It just takes absolutely everything in its stride. One thing I have noticed is that when you go sideways this way, you get mud in your face. When you go sideways the other way, you don't get mud in your face. So if you are going to drive one of these off-road vigorously, maybe try and drift right-handers more than left-handers. Because it's the same engine as the standard Plus 4, we've got 258 horsepower, 350 Newton meters of torque. 0 to 60 times, well, they're irrelevant, aren't they, really, in this? But I can tell you, it still feels mighty rapid. And because of those chunky off-road tyres, you launch it in a straight line on gravel and it just shoots off. So when you come to a stop and you kind of think, well, I'm on gravel, I'm in a rear-wheel drive car, it's not going to go anywhere. First gear, and you dump the clutch and it turns into a spaceship. How is it doing that? How is it just setting off like on tarmac? The brakes as well are really fantastic. I was kind of expecting it to be quite difficult to judge where to slow down, but honestly it's no bother at all. It's just like driving in the way. Kind of got to think about it a little bit, but ABS still working fantastically. All you need to be aware of is if you steam into a corner with a bit too much speed, it will push on a little bit, then it might bite, then it might push on. Got to be particularly aware when you go from mud to gravel, say, you've got to start to master that change in surface. What a challenge. I could quite literally do this all day. Sometimes when you want the boost from that engine, you've got to wait a little bit. You just got to try and keep it pinned really and trust that those rear tyres will find grip when it does eventually spool up when you do get the power. There are 3 drive modes for the Diff, and that's the key really to unlocking this car's potential. You've got road mode, which is where the diffs are completely open. You've got all-terrain mode, which is where they lock 45%, and then you've got all-terrain extreme, which is what I'm in at the moment, which is where the diffs are fully locked. And that, if you're doing this kind of thing, sliding about is where you want it. What I like is that the interface to change those diff settings is so simple. You've just got 2 little switches on the dash, 2 little rotary switches. If you've got no green lights, that means it's in road mode, the diffs are fully open. If you've got 1 green light, that means you're in all-terrain mode, 45% locking. 2 green lights, fully locked up. There's no menus, no sub-menus, no holding down switches for a certain amount of time. It's just simple and easy. Which when you're doing this kind of stuff, that's what you want. There are times when you've got to be patient with that engine. It is very quick to respond, but occasionally you'll just get a bit of lag and you've got to kind of think, right, hold your nerve, keep your foot in it, it'll boost, then it'll come in, there we go. What I love as well is the fact that this is still a Morgan +4, so as soon as you climb in, you've got the smell of leather. The dashboard feels very familiar. You get it in, it's like, oh, it's a Morgan +4. You've still got a heater, which on a day like today is glorious. But then there are these little touches that remind you you're not in just a normal +4. You've got the little switches for the diff, but then you've got a little light. If you've got a map and it's dark, you've got a mount on the dash to hold your phone. And then elsewhere around the cabin, you've got like a little storage bag down here for a map, say. You've got a first aid kit behind you. The only thing I would say is that when you're mucking about like I've been, get it with a knee pad, because my knees keep banging to the centre console. Is it a fitting tribute to the hill climb Morgans of old? Is it really worth £170,000 plus tax? Well, it's got to be, hasn't it? Because if you think about it, every Morgan is an experience. You can buy a BMW with the same engine. You buy a Morgan because you want something different. And this, there will only ever be 8 of these. And who wouldn't want an off-road Morgan? Morgans are experience cars, and this is such an experience. What a car.